Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day, and welcome to a video where I'm going to be talking about some exciting upcoming changes to some of the new spells for a couple of schools. Now, if you didn't know, the previous update to spells added a lot of things to a lot of schools, and they introduced the idea of gambits to Wizard101. Now, a gambit means a lot of things in a lot of games. In Wizard101, basically what it means is, right, if you have a certain number of things on you, you can sacrifice them to make a spell do double damage. So that's what Doom Oni does. That's what the Jinn here does. That's what the Scion does. What I thought I would talk about is what are these upcoming changes. These are things that have been leaked, I guess, on Ratbeard's stream. So I will link that stream in the description if you guys want to watch his streams. He literally develops on the game and streams, which is ridiculous. But I want to talk about this because honestly, I think it's going to really change how these schools are played. And it's really going to change how you play when you encounter these schools. Now, one big change that's happening is a Doom Oni and the Jinn spell, right? They're actually going to become drained. What this basically means is that the damage of these is probably going to go down a little bit, mainly just because you don't really, they always do this with their spells. They always have a slight damage reduction for drains on death spell. So what I anticipate is that death will be getting drains for Jinn and Doom Oni, but it will be slightly lower. I think Doom Oni will be closer to, I want to say 500. I don't think it'll be anything that different. I think it'll be very, very similar to Wraith. So it'll do the same damage, but 7 pips, but you can do double damage. Honestly, this will make Doom Oni a spell that's actually worth casting. Right now, in my opinion, Doom Oni is absolutely not worth it because you could literally Solar Surge enchant a Wraith and you get 800 damage. Yes, you're getting around 1100 with Doom Oni, but that requires a lot of shields and it's not a drain. Now, as far as the Jinn, honestly, this spell's in a weird spot right now, mainly because of the fact that Blade Gambits right now are working in a very, very weird way, right? What a Blade Gambit should be doing, I think it's very obvious based on how every other spell works. If you have 4 blades on yourself, right, it should remove those 4 blades, and in exchange, it should do double damage on the spell. However, much like every other Blade Gambit right now, this works weird because the blades are working as intended, but I don't think they work as intended with this spell. I don't know how to explain it, but basically, right, let's say that you were to have, right, 4 different types of death blades on you. What I think the spell should be doing, which I think is pretty obvious, it should be removing those 4 blades, and then you should have a 1500 damage hit, right? It does double damage. Right now, what it does, for some weird-ass reason, and I think it's because blades, the way they're coded, is that they actually are front-loaded. And basically what that means is that, unlike traps, they take priority over everything. And that's why spells like Minotaur, which are double hits, and Overtimes, which are like quadruple hits, that's why a blade buffs every part of it. I think there's a reason why blades work the way they do. I just don't think they integrate that well. I think that's a better way to put it. Basically, right now, if this were to become a drain, and all you needed to do essentially was Death Blade, Spirit Blade, and now you have, like, even if they nerf it for being a drain, right? Let's say you have a 1400 damage drain. You have a double buffed drain in like 2 turns. It's ridiculous. Double buffed and double damage based on the way that it works right now. I think if they were to make this Jinn into a drain, they 100% need to fix how this specifically works. Otherwise, you're just going to see everyone just spam this. There's not going to be any other comparable thing. Because yes, Scion exists right now, but compared to the Blade way of setting things up, I mean, Scion will be useless. I'm gonna be honest, I already plan on using this. I think what's gonna be really fun is working with Spirit Blade, but also spells like Dark Pact. I feel like this is very underrated right now. But if you were to set up for a Blade Gambit, this type of double blade spell could be very, very good. So yes, I really hope there's a drain. I assume it'll be around 700 damage, and then you get the double damage if you have 4 blades on. I hope that when they make this into a drain, again, I hope it removes the blades and then does the double damage. Not that it buffs it up with the double damage and then removes the blades in a weird order that just doesn't make the spell work like it's supposed to. Now, the other spell that's going to get a massive change, and this one is a gigantic game changer, and I think Balance needed this, it's Duststorm Jinn. Now, I gotta be honest, honestly, if not for this spell already, I think Balance would be pretty much very underwhelming, almost unplayable, mainly because this is the only gambit that you can actually do something to set up. Like, yeah, Tribunal Oni is cool, but if your opponent has 2 shads, they can just use the shad. They can strike, they can shad hit, very easy. If your opponent has 11 pips and you're trying to do double damage, they just got to use the pips. Again, I am oversimplifying it. There are times where using pips obviously is a very bad move. There are times where using a shad, very bad move. I'm not saying that these spells are unusable. I'm just saying compared to this god tier spell, not even close. The good news is the change that they do to Duststorm Jin is almost certainly going to be a buff. What they're going to do is turn this into a triple hit. And the key here is that it's going to be an elemental hit. Now, this is very, very important, right? If let's say this were to become a spirit hit, I'll be honest, I think collectively, I think every balance could have retired because this spell would have also been as bad as every other spell. Now, what's the difference between a spirit hit and an elemental hit for balance? I think that's a very good question. Honestly, a lot of people probably don't know about this. Basically, in the most recent audit rules, they realize that balance does have hits that use off-school damage, and it's not balanced the same way other balance spells are balanced. And let's explain this. Let's take just a pure damage hit like Locust Swarm, right? For 3 pips, high end does 300, but low end does 245, right? So if you divide those values by 3, you're looking at 80 to 100, right? That should be your average damage per pip. That brings balance to around 90 damage per pip, right? But you'll notice that a spell like Hydra for 6 pips does well over 90 per pip. If it was doing 90 per pip, it would be doing around 540 damage. This does a whopping 690 damage. So what accounts for that extra damage? It's basically, the rule is simple. Basically, Storm, Fire, and Ice are used for Hydra's balance, for Hydra's balancing in the spell audit. Whereas for an actual, like, balance hit, you're going to see balance values used. That also means that for a spirit hit, you're using the damage per pip on average for mid spells, life spells, and death spells. And that's how you get the balance for Chimera. What you'll notice is that it makes a huge difference. Hydra does 230 ahead for 6 pips. Chimera only does 290 for 3 extra pips. That's nuts. That's actually like it doesn't even make sense to use Chimera unless you actually have other spirit hits that complement it. You would never be better off using Chimera unless you ran Tribunal Oni, unless you probably ran Spiritual Tribunal. You'd have to run all of these extra spells to even make Chimera mildly worth it. And here's the thing, the reason that doesn't really ever work in the end is because Hydra has other spells you can use with it as well, including Spectral Blast, and let's not forget, including Nested Fury. So in my opinion, the extra damage on these elemental hits have always been better than the spirit hit. So if they make Duststorm Jin into an elemental triple hit, which is basically what they're gonna do, not only does the damage go up from 760 times 2, right? Not only does it go up, it also becomes a triple hit. So when your opponent or you has 2 matching heals or overtimes on you, you're looking at, I would like to say, closer to around, I want to say 16 to 1700 damage for the double damage condition, way more than the 1500 that you currently have. And let's not forget how this spell works. This spell is absolutely insane. How it works, right? Yes, you can set up 2 overtimes on your opponent, 2 heals on yourself. Yeah, that's great. You can always set that up using your spells, but this is a really good counter to anybody doing an overtime gambit of themselves. Let's say that your opponent is going for a Scion of Fire and they put 2 overtimes on you. Yes, they're ready to Scion, but you're automatically ready to Jin for 2 less pips 1 round earlier than them. Let's say a Life is trying to Life Scion, right? They put 2 heal overtimes on themselves. Yes, they can Scion, but you are ready to Jin already before they can even do it. That's why this spell is so good. If anybody is using an overtime gambit, this spell immediately comes into play without even you needing to do anything. And the fact that it's going to become a better hit, a triple hit, just more damage and a triple hit, it's just going to have so much more synergy with spells like Hydra. It's going to have a lot more synergy with spells like Spectral Blast, a lot more synergy with spells like Nested Fury. Now, obviously, you could just do a regular, you know, like balance-oriented strategy. I think Obsidian Colossus is a great balance spell still. You can still use Savage Paw. I would argue Savage Paw works better with off-school, like, you know, Hydra hits, all that jazz. But, you know, you could use all these spells. I just think the fact that the off-school thing is really coming into play now with these spells, and when they change this, it's going to make balance much more fun to play. Because Fire has both Infernal Oni, which is a double damage hit based on having 2 heals on yourself, and Scion of Fire, which is a double damage hit based on having 2 overtimes on your opponent, I think a Fire Mastery is going to be very useful because you can use this spell and this spell, and also Meltdown if you have it. I don't have Meltdown trained, but you have 3 different fire spells that can all set up for your balance gen, and you can also buff that up with, you know, elemental blades, elemental traps. You can basically make it do a lot, and you can hit through a tower because it's a triple hit. But yeah, y'all, that seems to be getting new drains. Balance is going to be getting a new triple hit, and they're all going to be gambits, so they're all going to be fun to use and hard to set up, complicated combos. One thing I will say is I'm really happy that they're using Balance's actual identity, Death's Drain identity, to actually make these changes, because that's just going to make the schools more different. You feel me? I don't want to play on a Death and feel like I'm doing something similar when I play on an Ice. That's stupid. Why am I playing on those schools then? The fact that they're doing this, I'm excited for it. Very excited for the Jin specifically. But let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think of a triple hit elemental Jin, I guess? Or a Dust Storm Jin? I don't know if they're going to change the name. What do you think of a Drain Doom Oni and a Drain Death Jin? These are going to be game changers, y'all. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what spell from this update is your favorite. I want to hear everything. All right, bro? I'll be reading every comment. Drop a comment if you're enjoying the content. Drop a like. Drop a sub if you're new. And as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. So stay awesome. And yeah, y'all.